things that continue to happen. We cannot continue to have young girls and young women in our society, whether it's here in America or it's in Canada or it's in China, wherever young girls are exploited, it has got to stop. There are several videos. One young woman who is now 28 says at some point in her life she plans to get married, but there are still videos of her as a 13-year-old teenager being exploited when she lived in China. To this day, she's now 28. We've got to stop this. PornHub is crazy. And it's not just crazy, it's exploitative. There's another story of another young woman on there that I read that was so disturbing that this is what you call a trigger warning. The thing about this is the porn industry is so huge and so large. You know that PornHub is not the only site where this happens, right? There's another site called OnlyFans, but that one is where the sex worker gives consent to have you on her site. So she's giving you consent to watch her perform, right? That's how she makes that's money, and that's how she makes money, and she's giving consent. But in a lot of these scenarios, even where the girls might have given consent to being videotaped, they didn't give their videotape to being shown on PornHub, where millions of people have watched them being exploited. What do you think happens to those people? There's no protection for them. The society doesn't protect them because Section 230 of the rules that govern how the internet and what is posted on internet platforms seems to protect them. There are also sites where they post these onto Twitter and Facebook. There are whole Facebook groups and whole Twitter groups that you and I probably can't access, right? That they can post whatever. Look at this. I'm using YouTube as a platform. YouTube is the largest platform in the world, but well, actually PornHub is greater. PornHub has over billions of views, billions and billions of views, and billions of subscribers, right? But YouTube allows you to post material, and there was a time when they didn't censor it, and now to post that kind of material on YouTube, it goes through a series of people. Well, PornHub, who has billions of views, says they have 80 moderators. 80 moderators who are supposed to view content before it's uploaded. That doesn't happen. So you would spend your whole life sitting in a dark room watching all this content. That doesn't make any sense. That it's not realistic. So what happens is people end up watching, they speed through the videos. So they may not see that the 13-year-old girl is being choked to death, or that she's being raped forcibly and being forced to perform sex acts that she probably says no. Some people on PornHub say, well, some of the moderators says, well, we don't know if it's fake or if it's real. At what point is there not a trigger warning that that's a 13-year-old girl? So they say that they can't tell the difference by viewing people, the difference between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old girl. And I'm like, really? You can't? I've had 14-year-old girls. I could tell when they brought their friends home, their friends looked 14 to me. They didn't look 18. It seems to me that our ability to exercise permissiveness is elastic. It's elasticized because we want to participate in nefarious activities to our own pleasure. So therefore, we're going to cap it and say she looks old enough. She looks 18. Yeah, she looks 18. When what you really want is to see her naked butt on the side. And it makes you wonder, what kind of parent am I? You know, because I found myself asking myself that question. I said, is this why I was such a helicopter parent when my daughters were young? When my daughters were little, I was the helicopter parent times 10, like to the 10th degree. Talk about hover parent. Oh my goodness. And now I know why, because I would hate to see any of my children who become old enough now, right? And who find themselves in a situation where they participated in some sort of activity and now years later they're paying for it. The damage that is done to them emotionally is incredible. And I think it's time we start holding sites There are more women in the world than men. Yeah, men have the power. Sure, they do. But it's time for us to start holding people accountable. It's time for us to start asking the hard questions about why it does this happen. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. The article started talking about this young woman, the children of Pornhub. Children, they're having sex with children, not just 13 and 14-year-olds, not just they're having sex with 12 and 10 and 2-year-olds. Come on, people, why does Canada allow Pornhub to operate and to profit off the sex of children? And I'm throwing that out there. And in a minute, I'm going to take to Twitter and ask the Canadian Prime Minister, why do you allow that company? The company has a massive headquarters in Montreal, Canada, MindGeek. Pornhub actually operates 10 different sites, y'all. 10 different sites devoted to pornography, the exploitation of women and girls. I'm not talking about 18-year-olds. I'm not talking about consenting adults. Rape is never normalized. A sexual assault is never normalized. We're talking about forcible sex on children. I have children. I have nieces, y'all. I have young people, very young children in my family. If something were nefarious like that were to happen, I don't know that I could sit here and contain myself. I don't know that I would be able to speak normally. This kind of behavior is beyond reprehensible. It tells us that as a world, we don't care about anybody else. All we care about is ourselves. All we care about is us doing what we want, when we want, to the pleasure of ourselves, and to hell with anybody who disagrees with it. I kid you not. The imagination, the very stuff that emanates from out of sexual violence is unbelievable. You would have had to experience it to understand what it feels like to be sexually violated, right? Pornhub says that it's a nice organization. Remember, during the shutdown, it actually opened itself and said it was donating money and so on. But it was exploiting young girls. A lot of there's a story on there about a 15-year-old girl who went missing in Florida. Her mother found her on Pornhub in 58 sex videos. This article, by the way, is on the New York Times, and it's written by Nicholas Kristof. And I kid you, he did an awesome job. Right? It is crazy. Oh my God. Pornhub attracts 3.5 billion visits. 3.5 billion visits a month, more than Netflix, Yahoo, and Amazon. Are you hearing me? 3.5 billion. So ladies and gentlemen, watch out. The very people you know in your life whom you pride are the very people who are on Pornhub. Say it. They're all on Pornhub. They're watching. Because how in Dickens' name is Pornhub making 3.5 billion visits per month without it being some of the people we know? People who go on there and think it's fun. People who go on there to get their rockers off. People who think it's fun to watch people being exploited. Right? It's rape videos. They actually make money off watching people watching young girls being raped. Jesus, have mercy. You can go on that site. I've never been to the site. I didn't go on it because I don't know if the feds don't watch. I don't know. I don't, you know, as a person, you don't want to go on sites that they will capture your data and then come back and use it on you, right? But just think about it. 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and 13-year-olds. How does the government allow Pornhub to operate in the United States? Why? Because Hugh Hefner had Playboy Club. If I remember correctly, Playboy was adult women. Am I correct? Did they do something that the rest of us don't know about? Did they perhaps do something like we don't know? I just want to know. Playboy, if I understand, if I remember correctly, was just about adults having sex, girls behaving badly, right? Somebody saying human trafficking and illicit funds derived from sex crimes are under the umbrella of money laundering, and therefore any company, along with beneficial owners, can be prosecuted. The problem with prosecuting human trafficking claims, like I've heard from the FBI many times in as many sessions that I've sat, is that the the victim rarely ever comes forward. More often than not, they have to find them under a different crime so they can get a successful prosecution. Uh, but if we're looking at them from a money laundering point of view, we probably can't get them for money laundering because they can't explain how they make such huge sums of money when in fact what they're doing is running a sex business, a sex video business. And we've got to ask ourselves, at what point in our evolution as a civilization do we stop? And last night I was thinking, and pardon my naivety, but I was thinking last night and I said to myself, is this why we're having a plague? Is this why we had a plague? The greatest country on the planet, the country that had the ability to stop this plague from becoming a worldwide pandemic, the country that could have stopped its own citizens from getting this virus, did not. We had a poor leader, a weak leader installed, and therefore the pandemic roiled us and felled us as a nation. The greatest country on the planet, with all the military equipment we have, with all the technological advances that we have, we got felled by a plague. And I said to myself, is this why? Is this because you and I go to bed at night and ignore the suffering of people? Is it because we are like, as long as it doesn't come to my door, it doesn't happen? Is this because our husbands or brothers or boyfriends or girlfriends or significant others or brothers, uncles, nephews go on PornHub and search for having sex with 16-year-old girls while their 12-year-old daughter is laying upstairs, while their 12-year-old niece is laying down somewhere, but they're watching somebody else's 12-year-old being raped? Is this why? I had to ask myself that question, and it was very uncomfortable. Very, very, very uncomfortable. Somebody said this young woman was trafficked from China. She was adopted. Listen to this. This is why you have to be careful of people who do international adoptions. You ever wonder about that? I had someone in my shelter who was an international citizen. I won't say from which country, and she was adopted. The family, the American family that she was adopted into in Minnesota, had sex with her from she was 3 years old. They started having sex with her from she was 3. Nice Christian people, but they were having sex with her, the father and the brother. She eventually ran away from home several times, and they kept bringing her back, and she kept running away until she ran away for good before she turned 14. Couldn't take it anymore, right? She was trafficked. They are the ones who set up other people in the community to come and watch her have sex as a child, like she was this exotic bird who was performing. I kid you not. What this young lady in this article is saying is something that I have known about. I have firsthand knowledge of. These things happen. This young lady in this article says she lived in China. She was adopted by an American family into China, into America from China. And she was exploited. Listen to this. She was exploited from the time she was 9. She started appearing in pornographic videos when she was 9 because her adoptive family forced her to appear in pornographic videos. Some videos of her being abused ended up on PornHub and still there. She's now 23. She's studying at a university, but the videos continue to be there. Are you hearing me? See, we look at people like Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Cosby, and we prosecuted them because we said that they did not ask for consent. They did not ask for consent. But what about the girls? Nobody obtained their consent. This 9-year-old girl, did anybody ask for her consent to appear in a pornographic video? The law says that if you're under 16 in most states, the age of consent varies by state. Here in Michigan, it's 16. If you're under 16, you are not emotionally able to make decisions for yourself. You can't even make a decision about who you live with or where you go. You definitely can't make a decision about having sex. 14-year-olds and 9-year-olds cannot consent to having sex. They don't know what it is. They don't have the emotional intelligence to understand the ramifications of their actions. And yet the government allows PornHub to operate in the United States. It's a Montreal company based in Montreal. It's a Canadian company. They can't find who owns it, but there are two dudes who operate it. They don't have social media profiles. They've already checked. Right? The reporter says he came across a video that, and here's another thing. This is how the exploitation continues. They came across a video of women. What is the fascination with raping women while they're unconscious? How many times have we seen Lifetime movies where you go out on a date with somebody, they slip something in your drink, and while you're unconscious, they have sex with you, or they make videos of having sex with you, or make videos of you being unconscious? That's some sick, that's just so sick and disgusting. It's unbelievable. What's so fascinating about a woman's body that you can't obtain her consent before you proceed to having sex with her? There are so many videos on PornHub of women being sexually assaulted while they're unconscious. How do you think that happens? You think that they just, oh, I'm just going to lay here and be unconscious for you to have fun with me? No, they went with someone whom they trusted, someone whom they placed their life into their hands, not realizing that this person was about to slip something into your drink that drugs you, offer you a glass of water or a glass of wine or whatever it is, and then drug you, and then proceed to upload the same video to PornHub and destroy your life forever. The trauma, the emotional trauma that emanates from sexual violence is just like if someone tried to kill you. It's the same kind of violence. You do realize that, right? Because men just, when you talk about sexual violence, men don't seem to relate to it unless they were in prison and were gang raped. Then they understand that it's the same kind of violence. I have to put it into that context for you to understand what you're dealing with, that you're dealing with violence to the person. It's just like if you were to go home and someone attacked you in your home while you were in your bed and you felt so violated and you felt so overcome and helpless and powerless. That's the same sort of feeling that a person who has been sexually assaulted feels. So we're running up on Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein and the Epsteins. It looks like something going on there, right? And Bill Cosby's of the world. But we're not running up on mom and pop and dad and uncle who is putting up videos of his niece and nephew under the illusion of just some username, because they never put their name as John Brown of Little Rock, Arkansas. They never put their name like that. It's always XYZ user. But there is a way to unlock it. And the feds do go after it, but they don't. Like, if they were going after it, they would find other ways. That somebody even actually said, well, if you even shut down PornHub, those videos are going to end up on the dark web. So people who still want to view those kinds of videos will still find a way to view it. And I'm like, yeah, but at least shut it down and prosecute it so that others don't get the same idea to do it. Then it won't be widespread. Are you hearing me? I don't know how that is not disturbing to anybody who's hearing this. I don't know how you don't find that disturbing, because I do. It's deeply, deeply disturbing. Let me continue. They also have videos on PornHub about she can't breathe, extreme choking, degraded teen. Are you hearing me? Yes, they do. PornHub does not make its executives available for you to find out who they are. It, of course, gives a statement, go to hell, right? But because the lives you have destroyed cannot be replaced. There was a 14-year-old girl in California who consented to her boyfriend making a video of her naked. He was a real dude, wasn't he? I don't know why he wasn't prosecuted, because she was 14, she couldn't give consent. So I don't know why they didn't go after him. Well, the video ended up being, he circulated the video to everyone in his group chat. Then somebody put the video on PornHub. She couldn't go back to school. She felt so bad. Do you know that people commit suicides out of this? She changed school and the videos still followed her. She tried to kill herself 3 times. She cut herself and was bleeding. They found her and revived her. Her sister went home one day and found her hanging, and they revived her. She tried to kill herself 3 times. The 3rd time she tried with pills. She ended up dropping out of school completely because she couldn't live at home with her parents because she became addicted to drugs. So they introduced her to drugs as a way of coping. Somebody did. And she ended up being a drug addict. So she ended up deciding that the only way to make some money was to go sell some videos of herself. That's when she found herself on PornHub, and she wasn't making any money off the videos of her. She tried to kill herself 3 times. She was 14. Do we have any level of empathy? Do we have sympathy? Do we have compassion? A lot of us as women know that our husbands and boyfriends and significant others are viewing porn on the internet. We know they are. They go down into the basement at nights, or if your house doesn't have a basement, they have a room that they don't want anybody else to go in. They have computers that are password locked, that you don't know what the passwords are. If it were me, I wouldn't tolerate that. You know why? Because I don't know if you're not building a secret bomb. Why do you have a password, internet, a computer with a password I can't get into? But a lot of women know this and they choose to ignore it. So they're just as complicit in it. By being silent, you are complicit as well. You have husbands who, for large parts of the night, he doesn't come to bed until 3:00 in the morning. What is he doing? He's on the internet watching porn, watching young girls having sex. Seriously? A lot of women are aware that their husband, this is what is called child sex trafficking, and it's legalized and legitimized by being on PornHub. And it's severely monetized because those people are earning money off of it. Oh my goodness. Listen to this. A public official in Arizona was arrested, Paul Peterson was arrested in connection with charges that he ran a multi-million-dollar scheme in which he smuggled pregnant women from the Marshall Islands. I remember that. They made a Lifetime movie out of that. He was a public official sitting on the city council, if I recall, right? He was sitting on the city council and he brought in pregnant women from somewhere else so they could have babies here. This is the crazy world that we live in. And I don't need the morality police to come and say, well, how do we provide oversight to people? The law does that. Just enforce the law. If you enforce the law enough, you take care of that and you don't have to worry about it. The law does. That's what the law is there for. But for some reason, the law only happens to poor people. So you have some poor dude trying to make money like we saw here in Detroit recently. I kid you not. He had a 15-year-old girl locked up in a house somewhere that he was forcing her to have sex and selling her, created a website and was on Facebook and so on, created a website for her. They found him. They locked him up. He's probably going to be locked away for life under child sex trafficking laws. He's gone for good. He's some poor dude. Jeffrey Epstein was put away in a Manhattan jail under security. And there are many others. What about the people with Jeffrey Epstein who were having sex with those young girls? They're not prosecuted. They haven't been locked away. They haven't been locked up. Why aren't they prosecuted? So you get the poor guy, but the rich ones walk away. they're both equally just as bad. Here's this little guy in Detroit. I mean, he's just trying to make money. He's just a mirror image of what goes on elsewhere. There are many others like him. They sell their nieces and their neighbors. One of the things that comes up on PornHub a lot, I hear, is videos of women in showers, like at the gym. Nefarious people install cameras inside their homes where they can look directly into your bedroom and see you getting dressed at night, see you coming out of the shower into your bathrooms. Ladies, would you please close the blinds? How many Lifetime movies have we watched? And you drive past people's homes at nights and the blinds are wide open with the lights on inside. Like, seriously? Some days I'm like, are we really just not paying attention? And you want to say, well, I'm in my home. I can. Yeah, but you don't want some peeping Tom out there to be looking in, right? How can we go to the bathroom in public spaces and there are cameras installed there watching you use the bathroom? That's a lot on PornHub. So for all we know, for most women, if you've ever been to the gym and used the communal showers, such things I would not consider doing. If you've ever been to the gym and had to use the bathroom because you were in a rush and you had to pee, chances are somebody had a camera installed there just to see. Are you hearing me? Disgusting. Am I disgusted? You bet. Right? Am I just totally out of it? There's a story about this young girl, right, who was an A student in Bakersfield, California, who never made out with a boy, but he asked her for a video and she did it and he circulated it. She lives in her car now with 3 dogs. Right? The boy was suspended, but she skipped class because she couldn't bear the shame. The end result is that Peterson was the county assessor. This is currently being adjudicated. Are you serious? 2.7 million in deposits were credited to his bank account during the time frame in question. Really? He made that much money? $2.7 million selling people. The problem is this. The problem is what we call the trafficking of persons. It's modern day slavery. I have a foundation, the Exodus Foundation. We set it up simply because we recognized that there were women who were trafficked as children and who are now adults. And due to the sexual violence they experienced as children, it has so traumatized them that they're unable to function. Invariably, they're homeless when they get older. Older meaning anything past 20, right? And in order for them to be reoriented to society so that they can live, they need a platform. So they go from shelter to shelter because they're not accustomed to living in stable situations like you and I. Get up every morning, shower, go to
90 seconds.
so on, right? And what happens to these people is that they end up being traumatized. And the trauma that they endure, is incredible. The trauma is so bad that they actually
Blog Talk Radio
are so, how shall I say, so deeply affected and impacted by this that they have no recourse. It's one of the craziest things. So the U.S. government, the Department of Justice, set up a whole section on the trafficking of persons. It's a worldwide problem. This administration did nothing about it. You worked against human trafficking. Can't say nothing else. I respect that. I appreciate you. I just want you to know. I just want to tell you thank you on behalf of all of us, on behalf of all the people. This administration, the outgoing administration, didn't do a whole lot about it. You know that, right? They, in fact, stopped a lot of the funding to non-government organizations that were providing relief, despite what you hear the president's daughter say publicly. They didn't do anything about it because a lot of them, these companies that profit from the sale of people, make a lot of money, and they're well connected. This is perhaps the greatest problem. It's not just the victim who won't enunciate or the victim who won't come forward. It's the people behind it. They hide behind shell corporations. Like PornHub is operated by a company called MindGeek. You hear a name like MindGeek, you probably think that it's technology based. No, they operate a multitude of sites. So these companies operate under the blanket shield of propriety and appear to be doing business when in fact they're selling people for money. The trafficking of persons has become a problem. It mimics modern slavery. It mimics what slavery was. I used to say that when I look at human trafficking, it's almost as if they took the playbook of slavery and made it better. Instead of enslaving people for just labor, because here we have labor and sex trafficking, it's not just that. They enslave people, but they also enslave them specifically for sex. They will lock women up and girls in basements and chain them and put them in these big box trucks driving down the highway. And they'll put them in trucks driving down the freeway. That's why sometimes when you're driving down the freeway and the cops flash them, don't say anything. Don't say, oh, that's the cops being punitive. You don't know what kind of information they have. Some of these people cross state lines. I had one girl who said that they crossed state lines to come and get her because she was about to talk. And the people who were involved in the nefarious activities were well connected. Happens all the time, over and over and over and over again. The trafficking of people, the trafficking of children into slavery. A lot of these people, America needs to stop having people import people. America needs to stop having people adopt children from overseas. All of that is sex trafficking. There are people, they have the means, the wealth, and they go and they adopt children and they tell everybody how they're going to raise these children with good standards and blah, 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 blah. And nothing happens but the child is trafficked. America needs to put a stop to it. That's the first place we need. If we're going to do something about it, pick the beam out of our own eyes first. We have child sex trafficking right on our doorstep every day. There are websites you can go to. There are apps that are available on the phone. You can type into that app whatever you want. Let's say you want a 14-year-old boy. There's an app called Grindr. Everybody knows about Grindr, right? Grindr, right? That's for homosexual sex. If you want to have sex with someone, with a male person of the same sex. Well, you type in 14-year-old boy, and there comes up a list of options. We've got to stop that. That's trafficking in persons. How you just wake up one day and just decide that you want to have sex with some child? How are you a normal person? Jesus, have mercy. This is exactly why there are now beneficial ownership rules in place. Financial institutions are now required to obtain and disclose all beneficial owners and members of the controlling group. Yeah, fat chance of that. Yeah, that's a good thing because PornHub is now facing a lawsuit from Visa and MasterCard because obviously they use their credit cards to pay for this. American Express, Discover. So guess what? Until the public cried out, companies were always benefiting. We really should be penalizing everyone involved in this. We really should. And to the law enforcement community, wherever you are, if you are doing it, someday you and I will shake hands. But for now, we're looking at each other across the screen and I'm saying, go for it with everything you've got. Because somebody has to. It is just damaging. Have you ever talked to a person who is now an adult and who has survived being sexually violated? The thing about it is not that it happened once. I got to wrap up in a few. It's not that it happened just once. It happened over and over and over again. Over and over, repeated attacks. There's one woman I know, she's still alive. She's in her 40s now. She was first taken back when she was 11. And they took her to a house where they dressed her up as an adult and had sex with her. Adults had sex with her while other adults watched. And when she resisted, they beat her until she had to give in. I kid you not. Have you ever talked to someone like that? What happens? It drove her crazy. She was institutionalized. It drove her crazy. That's what happens. People can't come to grips and they ask themselves, can they have a normal life? Well, normalcy defined how? We owe those folks a duty of care as a society because we contributed to it. Yes, we did. Because our brothers, our husbands, our partners, our friends, our coworkers, our bosses, people whom we know socially, they're the ones having sex with minors. And they're very adept about it and how they hide it. It's 7 a.m. there and you are up. I kid you not. Thank you for tuning in. I kid you not. The stuff. I I had some girls in the shelter. Believe me, I needed therapy because the stuff that they told me, they asked me, how do you think I'm supposed to live? How am I supposed to come back? And I tried to say, re-image yourself. You can't change what happened. I don't know that therapy is also a good method to exit this kind of pressure because therapy tends to re-trigger the event. That's what causes some people not to flourish. Because when you go to therapy, you have to state and enunciate what happened. My focus has always been on re-imaging yourself. You know it happened because you have the memory. But create a new life for yourself by rewiring your brain so you don't respond to those triggers. By telling yourself that was a part of my past, I'm trying to live in this new day. Every day you're trying to live. Because the trauma that emanates from it is even right now is making me very uncomfortable. It is something that I am going to have to address. I'm going to drink some chocolates in a little bit because confronting this kind of evil affects all of us as it should. I will not forget the looks on the faces of law enforcement people. I'm not gonna say everybody's good, but those who are in the fight, I'm not gonna forget the looks on their faces. Deeply damaging to them. And I say to all of us, for those of us who are interested in helping human beings, because sometimes it gets lost in the political display. It gets lost in the language and it gets lost in the execution. And there are people who want to be protected because they're being paid. In Detroit, we have a whole bunch of strip clubs, but there's none of the others in the suburban towns across the street from Detroit. But they exist. I went to a session about 2 years ago, I think, and I was talking about it, and they were like, "I'm like, don't tell me you don't know that this happens. Don't tell me you don't know that this happens." I said, some of these young girls who are missing, they're in the strip clubs, pretending, dancing, pretending to be 19. A friend of mine says when you go into a strip club, he said, and he's a former judge, he said when you go in there, that all the girls are always 19. That's the first sign. But the people who go into the clubs, he says there's a special place at the back of the club for the judges, the prosecutors, the police chief, right? And the captains of industry. The important people in town don't sit out there and crow with all the other guys. They are in the back of the club. They're enjoying the fruits of it. And you wonder why we can't get rid of sex trafficking. I'm just saying. Thank God for COVID-19. The Super Bowl is accessible for human trafficking. Right? We know that it's not just the Super Bowl. Wherever there's a large sporting event or concert, but the Super Bowl especially attracts it. We have to be very, very careful of that. Sometimes it makes you wonder what COVID-19 did put a damper on a lot of the strip clubbing activity, didn't it? Shut them down effectively because they were profiting off the flesh. They were profiting off sex, off the flesh. I kid you not. I can't tell you How much? This is so disturbing. I feel like I need to go get a cleanse, right? I need to go under the cross for a little bit. I need to put my head under water and drink a lot of water to flush it out because I feel so badly and so disturbed by what I'm seeing, by what I read. The article is on the New York Times. It's written by a guy because there are very few women who could write that article and complete it. So it's written by a guy, someone who probably has never experienced sexual violence. But I'm going to tell you this, my friends. Thank you, Brother Fuge, for being a part of our experience this morning. Thank you for sharing. And I'm glad that you have the anonymity of the internet to protect you and the work that you do. Me, I'm just out here. I'm just out here talking about it and hoping that eventually we can change minds. Here in Michigan, we provided some laws to provide an exit for individuals who were criminalized. And that is the thing that gets to me. The real criminals are the perpetrators, not the women, not the girls. The real criminals are the perpetrators, the men in suits, the men who are captains of industry, the men who are the judges. And they're the administrators of the law. They're the enforcers of the law. The men who hold up the society by their positions in banks. Last year, a man who was a vice president of a local bank was arrested because he was in a ring of people watching a 13-year-old girl have sex. This is the kind of activity that needs to stop. And so I'm going to ask everybody, boycott PornHub. It's your personal little space to go have fun, but you're exploiting women and girls, watching as women are raped and are choked. That could be your sister. That could be your girlfriend. That could be your daughter someday. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You wonder why we're in this constant cycle of things going bad? It's because we keep doing bad things to others and it keeps coming around. So it may not come around sexually on you, but then your child ends up drugged up, jacked up, end up running away from home, end up with some dude whom they shouldn't be with. Well, that's why you were busy watching a 13-year-old girl having sex and enjoying yourself and jerking off to it. We've got to stop this kind of nefarious behavior and get a grip on ourselves. Contain ourselves. Hold yourselves in. Don't you think we all have desires to have sex? Can you just hold yourself in and stop trafficking people? Stop selling people? People bring people here from all over the world and sell them. Package people and sell people, have people working in gas stations and all kinds of convenience stores for nothing, and then take them home and force them to have sex because they don't have passports, because they don't have anything. Come on! We need to do better, and we can do better. And the government needs to step up to the plate and make sure these people are put away. Stop hiding the doggone evidence that will put these people away. Stop paying them off. Stop letting them have money and access to pay off prosecutors. They're paying people off so they can stay out of jail, and they continue their willful neglect and their willful wickedness on young people. I gotta go. Let me hang up before it gets out of hand. I'm way past time. Stay tuned. Thank you so much. We're gonna talk more about this in another episode of Down to Earth. Thank you so much for being a part of my show. The article is on the New York Times. All of us need to go and read it, and all of us need to be aware. You can't go to sites like PornHub and watch young girls and young women being exploited and think we can get away with it. It comes back to bite all of us. It comes back, and it comes back because people have real issues exiting these sexually violated situations. They have real issues of surviving and coping with everyday life. And it's our fault because we're the ones, our husbands, our boyfriends, our partners, they are watching this and are paying for it with Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. We all should be ashamed. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks, Brother Fuge, for your participation this morning. Have a blessed day. This is as down to